Mihan Louw was just our guest lecturer at an operations management session at the study school. He's Group Supply Chain Management of Zaad, who's an international industrial agricultural organization, and it was about supply chain. Now, Mihan, can you give a brief synopsis of what you said to the students?
Thanks, Johan. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk to the students. I briefly explained to them, I found that in my career as a supply chain senior manager, it's sometimes tricky to translate the academic knowledge that you built, as part of your studies into a practical plan to get results in the job that you've been employed to do. So I've over the years put together a small roadmap, which I use quite actively myself in terms of how to practically go about year 1, year 2, year 5 of rolling out a coherent and effective supply chain strategy. It consists of a few elements, the people aspect, manufacturing, logistics, procurement, all the elements of the traditional supply chain. And I went through them very, very briefly and just shared some tips and tricks of the trade of how to get a fast start, in your new career as a supply chain manager, and then also, how to build on that for the future to make sure that you build a record of not only initial success but continued success, effectively adding value to the organization by your actions and making sure that the supply chain strategy is linked to the business strategy, and that what you roll out to your supply chain team is once again is coherent, and it can be measured, it can be tracked, so that there's less guesswork, especially in the initial phases, and that your time is spent on value-adding activities and not spent trying to figure out what you need to do to make this new job or this journey in supply chain that you're going to embark on work.
Okay, lovely. Based on your experience in the trenches of supply chain management, what do you think are the biggest challenges for supply chain managers and management in the world nowadays?
I think globally the challenge is, I think, mostly related to the political environment we're facing. Countries are more and more nationalizing their borders and their procurement and their manufacturing, and I think that has an impact, especially on South Africa, in terms of not having the scope that we used to have in a real traditional global economy. Locally, I find that skills in the South African context is a real problem. We do not have the level of highly skilled, be it artisans or be it specialists, on which to build a strong manufacturing base. And I also I feel that investment in manufacturing and in infrastructure in South Africa is falling a little bit behind, and as a result of that, we cannot really make progress in the supply chain fields, keeping up with the rest of the world. So I feel we are falling a little bit behind, with the lack of investment into the country.
Do you have any suggestions how to solve it?
Tough question. That's a very tough question with many incorrect answers, I think. No, Johan, I think retaining talent, and I think upskilling people in the industry that we work in really is the key thing. We educate and we bring through the system very, very good and well skilled supply chain experts, but I personally have seen many of them go to greener pastures overseas. So if we can find a way to retain that talent and for them to impart their knowledge again on the next level and the next level, I think we can do some of it in solving the problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johan.